If you want to write a story, it's just one word at a time, and hopefully they come fast and sometimes they come slow. But as long as they keep coming. Hi, my name is Jeff Nania. I'm joining you today from the Aldo Leopold Legacy Center along the Wisconsin River by Baraboo. And I'm here to talk to you about my recent books, the first one being Figure 8. And I thought maybe if we could, we'd start by letting me read a little bit to you. A faint, polite knock on John's door let him know that someone was visiting. The nurses, doctors, and the maintenance guy never knocked. They just walked in. Most of the time he didn't care. They were pumping enough pain medication into him to seriously impact his ability to be concerned with his dignity, or reality for that matter. It also made it impossible to pee, which resulted in yet another personal assault. Only visitors knocked. He didn't get many visitors. Doctor's orders, enforced by Nurse B. Holterman, a very tough old girl with the bedside manner of a night shift jailer. She was probably over 100 and had clearly made her bones in a tent hospital in World War II, cutting off limbs. People had tried to get in to see him several times, but she scared them off, never to return. They were feeling bad for old John, but not bad enough to run the B. Holterman gauntlet. Today, John was getting a visitor, and Nurse Holterman had attempted to intercede but finally relented, probably based on everyone's unspoken assumption. John was on his way out. And even if he did survive, his probable future looked like something between bad and plain dismal. The knocker now had a face and a voice. A young guy pushing 35 or so, good shape, healthy looking, with tan skin, and probably wearing his best pair of jeans. He was carrying a notebook with a pen shoved into the spiral binding, tools of his trade, and didn't look like the kind of hard-nosed reporter from the crime beat John had come to know. John Cabrelli? My name is Bill Presser. I'm a reporter from the Namaquogan County News in Muskie Falls, Wisconsin. My editor sent me to talk to you. He said you requested me. Cabrelli looked up from his hospital bed. He looked drawn and tired. Pain had taken its toll on his usual smiling face. His black curly hair had begun to show threads of silver and was plastered to his forehead from the sweats. Tubes and wires were attached everywhere, and a monitor beeped quietly in the background. John Cabrelli truly looked like a man on his last legs, with one exception. If you looked close, you could still see his eyes were steeled in grim determination. John answered, his voice strong, shaky, but clear. Hey, thanks for coming. I know you're a busy guy. I'm glad you could make it. I think you'll find it worth your time. If not, oh well, it looks like to me you've got a hell of a lot more time than I do. Presser was clearly uncomfortable, even for the most detached. Looking at someone who is struggling between life and death is tough. Where do you look? The eyes? The tubes, the wires, the bandage? Presser picked the ceiling and the window. If John chose to die at that moment, it was clear Presser did not want to see it happen. Mr. Presser, it's my hope that we're going to spend a fair amount of time together. Time, again, is the operative word. I may not have much. You need to make eye contact. Get over my current physical appearance and listen to my words. Ask whatever you need to ask so we can get on with this. Try and make yourself as comfortable as you can. Presser looked at John. I understand. I'm sorry. Actually, you're pretty good for all you've been through. That's okay, Bill. I know I look like hell. Wounds like this tend to put you a little off your game. Can I ask what the extent of your injuries are? Sure. I have one bullet still lodged near my spine. I took another one in the kidney, and that's the reason for all the machinery you see plugged into me. They removed one kidney and are hoping the other one will take up the slack. From the sounds of it, I was pretty torn up inside. The surgeons had their hands full. Mainly, though, I just feel like shit. Getting shot kind of does that to you. But I want you to know that I haven't had my usual dose of pain drugs today, so I can make some sense. Sometimes identifying the elephant in the room is the best way to get something rolling. The straightforward answers from Cabrelli, in an odd way, made Presser feel more comfortable. Well, my big question is, why would you request me? I'm just a jack-of-all-trades reporter for a small-town newspaper. You're a pretty famous guy now. A hero. There are lots of folks that would kill for this exclusive. Why me? Well, first of all, I'm a little sick and tired of the whole let's try and kill John thing. Secondly, you're from Muskie Falls. You write pretty well, and this story for you is a big deal. Make no mistake, though, I am no hero. And never refer to me that way. I have met real heroes, and I don't hold a candle to them. Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. I appreciate you letting me know what's off limits. I'll try and respect that. I need to say up front that we have no budget to pay you for this story. If your story is anything like what it appears, I'm sure one of the tabloids would compensate you very well. Yeah? Laura the lawyer has had a few calls. Being a lawyer with a sharp eye for the bottom line, she's been pushing me to take the money. Right now, money is not much of a concern to me. Don't think for a second the story is free. Not a chance. You just aren't paying me with money. Here's my deal. I want you to hear the whole story, start to finish. How I ended up here comes at the end. There's a lot in between. I need you to hear the in-between. You mean like your life story, a biography? No, just the last couple of years. Do you want me to write a newspaper story or a book? I'm not an author in the book sense. I can recommend a couple of guys from the cities. John cut him off. Look, I'm lying here full of bullets and not full of hydromorphone. According to the doctor, who looks like he doesn't shave yet, the clock is ticking. I'm sure he'll be here to harass me as soon as his mother gives him a ride to work. If we're going to start, let's start. Otherwise, on your way out, tell the nurse to bring me drugs. I just don't know. I'd like to think it through. I need some time. Again, let me restate the obvious. Time is what you've got plenty of, not me. We start or you go. I'm not trying to be difficult, but like I said, getting shot makes me cranky. John, to be honest with you, I'm not sure I can do you and your story justice. I write about the winners of the Lions Club fishing contest and Muskie Queen pageant for a small newspaper. There are going to be a lot of people reading this story, from all over the country probably. I'll never have done anything like this before. Well, Bill, if you stick with that chicken shit attitude, it's likely you never will. Here's your chance. Take it or leave it. Your choice, make it. It's a hell of a story you'd be missing. Bill Presser sat deep in thought, and Cabrelli didn't press him. He just waited. It was up to Bill now. Presser finally found his voice. My grandmother was a card player. When we were kids, she used to tell us, know when to hold, know when to be bold. If you're never bold, you'll always be playing someone else's cards for them. I'm guessing she was referring to situations like this. I'm honored that you want me to write your story, John. I will give it your very best. From there on, Bill Presser and John Cabrelli's lives were never the same. John Cabrelli starts his life out as a police officer patrolling an urban neighborhood in South Madison, Wisconsin. Like all law enforcement officers, he's faced with a situation that requires an instantaneous decision. I mean, can you imagine making a life and death decision in the blink of an eye? And that's what John Cabrelli had to do. And the results ended up being his worst nightmare. He finds a new life when he inherits a cabin in northern Wisconsin that belonged to his Uncle Nick and Aunt Rose. on a beautiful lake called Spider Lake in mythical Namakogon County. But like so many of us, Cabrelli has found that the environment, our natural resources, time spent in those places will heal us. And he found great healing in Spider Lake in Namakogon County. People wonder where I get the ideas for these books, and they all come from my life. I have had a great life, lots of adventure. My first career was in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement for a long time. I was actually a canine officer. And I traveled the roads of Dane County with my dog, Rosie. Things changed in our life, and I went on to a different career of conservation. I spent 2.5 decades, a little longer than that, as the head of the wetland restoration team for the Wisconsin Waterfowl Association. We did the actual physical work, the wetland restorations for many different government agencies and other conservation organizations. And then I was involved in founding one of the first environmental charter schools in Wisconsin, River Crossing, in 2002. And you know, it was probably the greatest thing I've ever done in my life was to work with those kids. We have schools based on this all around the state of Wisconsin. But you know, not all kids are good conventional learners. And people have a tendency to want to make those kids feel stupid. And our charter schools are project-based, and the kids, everything they do is based on the outdoors, all problem solving. And pretty soon they find out they aren't stupid at all. The only stupid people are the ones that called them stupid. And I enjoyed that so much. But I finally retired, and I just apparently must have had time on my hands because I started writing books. The characters of my books are all based on people that I basically know. I have an eclectic group of people that I have collected over my life, and I adore them. They're wonderful. And they are the real characters of these stories. A lot of people are interested and have asked me how I wrote this book. And, you know, I'm not a great author. I just wrote a book that was fun to read, and that was my whole goal. But it's interesting, my family, before I was born, my dad and a friend of his were in northern Wisconsin grouse hunting. They were looking for a place to stay that allowed dogs, and they found this old work camp on Spider Lake that was being converted into a resort. They booked one of the cabins there, and it was just beautiful. My father asked the owner, said, well, is it possible for me to bring my kids back here next year in the summer? I wasn't born yet, but my 2 older brothers were. And he said, yeah, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to make this a family place where families can come. That started a tradition for my family that has lasted 70 years. My family comes from all over, and we go to Spider Lake. We stay in the cabins, and we fish, and we swim, and we have great times together, and community dinners. One of the things we do is read a mystery book. We would buy, and at the time, Victoria Houston books. She's a writer from Rhinelander, and we would buy a case of her books and hand them out to everyone, the kids and the adults. And while we wouldn't sit down and read them together, we'd all be reading them at the same time and say, hey, you know, what chapter are you on? What page are you on? Well, one year, there was no Victoria Houston book. And so, I wrote Figure Eight. I've done feature writing for a lot of outdoor publications, Wisconsin Outdoor News and some national publications. And I'd never written a book or anything like that. And I did not sit down with an outline. I did not sit down with a plan. I just sat down and wrote Figure Eight. So the process that I had with my family in the writing of Figure Eight was I sat down and I wrote Figure Eight from beginning to end. It was, we talk about the writer's journey. You talk about all the things a writer goes through. And I didn't go through any of that. I should have. I'm certain that I should have, gone through some type of painful process. And I should have been sweating while I wrote this book, but I didn't. I actually laughed. I thought I was funny. Even if you don't or others don't, I laughed. But I wrote the book from beginning to end. There was no stopping. And once I was done, then I wrote it again. I just started over again, and then I said, now I'm going to give it to some family members, and I gave it to my wife and to some others, and just a few, and they read it, and they really liked it. And so I wrote it again. And the one I wrote again is pretty much what Figure Eight is. So I bound it in spiral copies from the print shop in Hayward, and I distributed it to everyone, and it became the new book for the book club. And it was great fun. And for me, this book is an interesting journey. It deals with a lot of the things that we have found in life. And Figure Eight has all sorts of meanings. One of the meanings is this: if you're a muskie fisherman, and you should be, if you're brave enough, you have to be brave enough, because muskies make fools of mortal men and women all the time. They're put on earth to do just that. One of the things they like to do is when you're cast out and you're retrieving your lure and bringing it up to the boat, they wait until the lure is just coming out of the water to snatch at it and swirl away, unhooked. So we use a move called a Figure Eight, where we take the rod and we're reeling it in, and we circle the lure and the tip right at the side of the boat, just in case the muskie wants to try it. And Figure Eight also is about places in our life and places we travel and places we've been. How many times? There's no one who hasn't been back to the same place, but at a completely different time in their life. Maybe they were there as a kid, and now they're there as an adult. And we see these places differently. But they have this sense of tradition. They're tied to being part of our life, something that's never going to go away. So I wrote Figure Eight, and we contacted, actually, what's really interesting is I wasn't sure that the book was any good, and so we contacted Little Creek Press, and they are located in the Mount Horeb area, and I said I'd like you to read the book and decide whether or not it's worth reading. Nobody wants to do anything it's not, and when it's your own book, and I've got thick skin, I'm good with that, and they loved it. Since then, the second book came out, and it is Spider Lake. It is a continuation of the John Cabrelli saga. And again, my books are based, they're mystery books, but they kind of have a different tenor than other mysteries. There's a lot about the outdoors. I spent a good portion of my life working in conservation, working on wetland restoration specifically. And I did wetland restoration work from all over Wisconsin, and actually in a foreign country also. I was asked by the Icelandic government to come to Iceland to look at the potential of restoring some wetlands that they had along the sea. It was a great experience. I had so much fun doing that. But the natural resources of Wisconsin to me have great value. They have a great place. And so I've included lots of descriptive things about our lakes and rivers and streams and all those things. You can't hardly get away from the fact that we have 15,000 lakes in Wisconsin. 15,000 lakes. Somebody asked me, well, with this COVID-19 thing, they said, where am I going to go to get away from people? We got 6-foot spaces all over the North Country. Plenty of places to go. Millions of acres of public land to hike. Thousands and thousands of miles of rivers and trout streams. We got all these places to go. And they're so much part of my life, I needed them to be a part of John Cabrelli's life. I'm not sure that I'm the person to give you advice if you're someone who wants to write. But I'll give you advice anyway, and you can just ignore it if you want to. If you want to write something, you have to start. In conservation, I did mostly wetland restoration, and I really, the practice of wetland restoration is so interesting and so incredible. It's just hard to believe what goes on. I was overlooking a large wetland project that I was going to start the following day in central Wisconsin. The conservation organization that we were doing it for had a bunch of people there. They had a tent up and kind of a groundbreaking sort of thing. And a noted conservationist, they asked me to take him on a tour, and I did. And at one point we're up on this bluff overlooking this project we're going to do. And he said to me, how does one restore a wetland of over 1,000 acres? I had never been asked that question. The answer was simple. 1 square foot at a time. If you want to write a story, it's just 1 word at a time, and hopefully they come fast, and sometimes they come slow. But as long as they keep coming. But if you never write, you'll never write a story, you'll never write a book. And write something that you like to read. Write something that makes you happy. Because the chances are, if it makes you happy, it'll make someone else happy too. There are lots of people that can help you. There are all sorts of writers groups and things like that. But really, all the important stuff is just going to come from you. You're going to write it. You're going to decide what the text is going to be. You get to make, one of the things that I thought was incredible, I got to decide every word in this book. I read a really interesting thing that a friend of mine sent me, and it was about words and writing. An artist, when they're painting a canvas, no brushstroke is wasted. Every brushstroke has meaning. It should be the same with a writer. Words should have meaning, not be filler, but have meaning. And I think that they do. I worked very hard to do that. I encourage people to do the same thing. Generally, I don't read from the second book because I don't want to spoil anything, but it doesn't really spoil it. But there's this, we just talked about words, and we talked about ideas and thoughts. And this is a lesson that I learned myself, and if I could pass this on to anyone, I'd pass it on to you. This is the first chapter of Spider Lake. Life is one of the most squandered of all our natural resources. Who hasn't wished a day, a week, or a month away? Tough week. Can't wait till it's over. Or only 5 more years to retirement. There's a cure for that. In my case, getting shot and almost dying gave me a new appreciation for being alive. I hope that I am never dumb enough to waste another minute, much less a day. When fall came, I thought about that. This year, fall was so brilliant, the leaves were beautiful, and I thought, I hope I don't waste a minute of the fall. Working on book 3, and it reflects my feelings about the changing of the seasons and how, we embrace this, even though it's winter coming. And I know I like winter just fine, but I know a lot of people who don't. My old police partner, who is featured, or somebody with a name similar to his, is featured in these books. He's a retired sheriff's lieutenant, SWAT commander from Dane County, and his wife was a retired sheriff's captain. And he fled the North Country for Florida and lives where it's sunny and bright all the time. I don't think I could ever do that. I need to feel the seasons change. I hope that you'll enjoy the book. I hope you'll read it. I hope at some time I can come to the Baraboo Library and talk to you guys in person. And we can have a discussion. What I'm most interested in is this. I hope you enjoy this book. I have a friend who's a great writer. Everybody likes everything he writes. He's never written anything that he liked. I needed to make sure that these books, that I liked them, that they were a good story, that they were entertaining, that they were mysterious. And I like these books just fine. I hope you do too. Thank you.